And welcome back. A grand tradition continued at the White House today when families, my own included, there they are, braved the elements to see the Easter Bunny and take part in the White House Easter egg roll, a tradition that dates back to the 19th century. My colleague Al Roker caught up with President Biden, who made a joke about his age while discussing the event.
This started with Rutherford B. Hayes. I think I met him, but, what is it?
A classmate of mine.
He was one of your classmates. What is so special about this egg roll?
Well, what's so special is this this is the people's house. And it always makes me feel good to look out there and see average Americans just walking around, looking at what's going on, because they own it. They own it.
And I can tell you there were a lot of people there this morning. President Biden marked Easter with a fairly traditional and apolitical presidential statement. In stark contrast to his general election opponent, Donald Trump, the former president marked the day with a long social media post attacking the prosecutors and judges involved in his criminal cases, baselessly accusing them of attempting to interfere with the November election. He also spent part of Easter Sunday reposting dozens of items on his social media feed, amplifying some incendiary claims, including an article that said that he is the chosen one, sent by God. It comes after last week Mr. Trump recorded a promotional message to sell a Bible for $59.99, marketed as the only Bible endorsed by the former president. Didn't know we needed one. Joining me now on set is Betsy Woodruff Swan, a national correspondent for Politico. Svante Myrick, a former Democratic mayor of Ithaca, New York. He's now the president for People for the American Way. And Republican strategist Rick Tyler, who's an NBC News political analyst. So, Betsy, I'm going to start with you, and I want to play a clip from this weekend's Cold Open on Saturday Night Live. Take a listen.
That's right, it's Easter, the time of year when I compare myself to Jesus Christ. That's just a thing I do now, and people seem to be okay with it. I'm going to keep doing it.
That's one of those things we laugh at now, but is actually pretty true. These things seem to happen on a regular basis, and we just kind of shrug it off.
This type of social media commentary from Trump actually goes back to years before he became president. Way back, I remember a tweet where he wished a very special September 11th to the haters and losers. This idea of marking days of significance by going after his detractors is like very deeply embedded on kind of a gut level. The other thing that's notable about this Easter tweet, I should say truth, to be accurate, is that it talks about he goes after the prosecutors and judges. And I think that's not a coincidence. One of the biggest challenges facing him for his reelect is the fact that his small dollar fundraising has nosedived. It's a problem for the entire Republican Party. And what Trump's strategists have noticed for quite some time now is that those numbers go back up and his numbers get energized when he goes after prosecutors and judges. It's something that's lucrative for him and that's helpful for him when it comes to fundraising, while at the same time, of course, looking very, very, very weird to those of us who are not considering being small dollar donors.
So, Trump's endorsing and selling Bibles. He shared a post calling himself the chosen one. Is this something Republicans have just come to expect? Do some actually connect with this? I mean, how do you explain it?
Well, explain it because nobody will stand up to Trump because there is no leadership left. Donald Trump, the whole idea is, to Betsy's point, is just trying to get attention so that they can get these low dollar rolling again. But look, he thinks that the evangelical is, and it is an important part of the base, but when somebody compares himself to Jesus, that should be like a red flag and a warning. Donald Trump stood on a stage in 2015 in front of 300, actually about 2,000 evangelical pastors, and said he never needed he never asked God for forgiveness, right. Which is fairly unusual for a Christian to say, because the central theme of Christianity is to need forgiveness. Right. So either he's delusional or he's God, and I'm beginning to think that he thinks he's God.
Yeah, I mean, this is, it wasn't too long ago he said that he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and his supporters wouldn't.
Well, to some extent, he's right. I mean, there's some paradox where when Donald Trump plays the loser, pathetic victim, people who can't afford to send him money, when his valuation in Truth Social, we were just talking about this earlier, a company that only had $3 million of revenue and loses money consistently is somehow worth billions of dollars, in which Donald Trump owns the majority of it. So here's a multi-billionaire who's taking $25 donations from people who can't afford it, and by playing the victim as if he is, he goes in his chauffeured limousine to his private jet from his private country club to fly to another private country club, and this goes on, and somehow he's the victim in all this. It's really remarkable.
So, Svante, we look back and remember what the Clinton campaign did in 2016. They spent millions in ads trying to amplify all the wild things that Donald Trump said. It didn't really work. Is this the tactic that Democrats should take this time around, or should they try something different?
Well, I think this time is different, of course, because Joe Biden is an incumbent. And I actually think Easter is a perfect example of what President Biden can do to draw a stark contrast. For Donald Trump, Easter is about him. It's about Donald Trump. For Donald Trump, the 4th of July is about Donald Trump. Thanksgiving is about Donald Trump. Christmas is about Donald Trump. But for Joe Biden, Easter is about Jesus. And the 4th of July is about America, and Thanksgiving is about family. And those things will never win the media cycle of that day. It is quite boring. You won't play clips of what Joe Biden said on Easter because he said normal things, like he is risen and we celebrate his return. On the 4th of July, he says normal things. So Donald Trump will win these 24-hour media cycles where he gets more attention, but it's frankly a Pyrrhic victory, a victory where you win the battle but start to lose the war. The American public in the 2020 election revealed, hey, we're actually sick of all this. There's too much chaos. It's too much about you. It's too much about vengeance. It's too much about retribution. It's too much. We would love to have a break where we can pay attention to our families and not what Trump said today. We can pay attention to our school and not what Trump said today. We can work without having to talk about all the time what the president said today. And Joe Biden has been steady and level, and yes, sometimes easy to make fun of because of level and steady he is. But I think it is actually a breath of fresh air on a day like Easter, where you just want, as we were in church yesterday, nobody was talking about Joe Biden. Not a single person yesterday was talking about Joe Biden. And that, to President Trump, would seem like a loss. Jeez, everybody's looking at the priest and nobody's looking at me. Not to President Biden. That could be a win come November.
Okay, let's turn to Capitol Hill now. The House is on recess, but Speaker Johnson's speakership could be in a bit of jeopardy. This is what moderate Republican Don Bacon told Kristen yesterday. Take a listen.
We have one or two people that are not team players. They'd rather enjoy the limelight, the social media. And the fact is, with a 1-seat majority, and we'll end up with a 3 or 4-seat majority after some special elections, but that's not a 435 people. It's a very narrow majority. And one or two people can make us a minority. But it is very likely that after this Ukraine bill, we may have a standoff with the speaker. I hope the speaker prevails. He's doing the right thing.
As somebody who covers Capitol Hill every day, Betsy, I think Congressman Bacon's analysis is right on, is spot on. It's crazy to think you could have a majority on an issue, a healthy majority, bipartisan majority on an issue, and that could be enough to topple your speakership. It's kind of a weird dynamic Johnson finds himself in.
It's one of these sort of strange things about the way the Republican Party exists on Capitol Hill that has become much more dramatic in recent years, but that's been a problem for quite a while. I remember back in 2013 when Gang of 8 immigration overhaul got so close to passing, and most of the members of the House supported the legislation, but then Speaker John Boehner wouldn't put it up for a vote because the majority of House Republicans opposed it, and he was worried he would lose his speakership. Spoiler alert, still lost his speakership. No more Speaker Boehner. But the extent to which the far-right cohort of the House Republican Conference has been driving the ship, that's been a problem for every House Speaker for more than a decade. Right now, it's gone from being a problem to the point where Mike Johnson is borderline Speaker in name only because of the extraordinary power that any 1 or 2 members have, and it's a Republican thing. It's not a majority-size thing. Nancy Pelosi managed to keep her conference totally under control, even when she had these microscopic majorities. It has to do with just the way that the base of the Republican Party and the far right of the Republican Party are just really, really good at taking over, exerting power, and setting the agenda.
It also has to do with fundraising. So Marjorie Taylor Greene and the like can go out and collect their $5 and $10 donors, and they don't need the speakership or leadership PACs to help them get elected. We were mentioning earlier is that it used to be that the speaker on both sides would say, knock it off, we won't fund your campaign, we'll run a primary against you, and you get in line. And now Marjorie Taylor Greene says to the speaker, knock it off, get in line, or we'll remove you. I mean, it's completely reversed. And ironically, I think there was a time when I would have enjoyed that position, but now I see the fallacy of my ways.
Yes, because frankly, the leadership, whoever the boss is, who comes in has to have some skin in the game. My mom always used to say the difference in a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich between involved and committed is that the chicken in a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, the chicken was involved, but the pig is committed, right? Donald Trump is the boss of House Republicans. He's the boss now of Senate Republicans, which is why we see Senator McConnell retiring. But the problem is he's involved, but not committed. He does not care if the House remains in disarray. He does not care if there's chaos, so long as he is praised and held up on an altar. And he does not have skin in the game. So he will allow this sort of disarray to continue. They're not afraid of Mike Johnson. They were not afraid of Senator McConnell. They're only afraid of one person.
All right, we got to go. Sorry about that, guys. Betsy, Svante, Rick, thank you for that great conversation. Still to come with just 2 weeks to go until the start of his first criminal trial. Former President Trump is now trying to delay the case indefinitely, while time's also running out for him to pay the $175 million bond in his civil fraud case. You're watching Meet the Press now.